And you joke that you didn't budget your trauma correctly. However, there is self-revelation in this show. You've been diagnosed with autism, and you say that it was like getting the keys to the city of me. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah, I think just sort of understanding that what the way I process the world is different to the norm meant that I was able to understand myself. Like I was always measuring my inadequacies and my failures against, the wrong measure. So it really sort of unlocked pretty much, I think, the most important thing, a lot more sort of empathy for myself.
Is autism a comedy superpower when applied properly?
Look, I'd be careful to say that. I think having a different point of view, can be both a different perspective and an experience in life. Can be both I don't know what the opposite of curse is. What's it? There's
A blessing?
a phrase.
A curse or a blessing,
and
maybe?
curse. Thank you. I've worked so much in the negative in my life. I don't have access to the positive words. But it's blessing and a curse. And, there's so much about my life that has been incredibly difficult that I'd be reluctant to say it's a blessing or a superpower. And I don't think having autism should have to be a superpower. People on the spectrum shouldn't have to appear like they have superpowers to validate their existence. That's certainly a thing. But I think anyone sort of who exists in the margin tends to have a comedy, a little bit of a comedy edge, because, the key to comedy is being able to show people a different way of looking at something. And autism certainly provides that.
A different way of looking at something must be useful, or at least interesting, when you're rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous in Hollywood, does it?
Oh, there's my dog.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, they're chatty. Look, it is. It is I think it's come in handy for me because I find, things that are normal kind of disconcerting. So I've got experience in disconcerting environments. So, I find the supermarket as overwhelming as I do an Emmys party. And because I've got so much experience in being disorientated, I feel kind of comfortable being disorientated at an Emmys party.
Yeah.
I only went to one, by the way.
Yeah. Is that where you met Jennifer Aniston?
Yes, that's the one. That was right. And John Stamos. Yeah, it's a great time. It's a good time.
Perfect. Was the autism diagnosis, did that play a part in choosing to take on the anti-vaxxers in Douglas?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think a lot of people sort of said, oh, your anti-vax stuff is kind of hacked material, like, it's an easy target. But I think what people forget when they say that is just because I agree with how they view it, they think that it's the same point of view, but it's not. I have autism. So, for people on the spectrum, this argument is particularly galling because our identity is sidelined in it. It's like, you don't matter. You're either, worse than polio or a developmental disorder. And people with autism have actual identities and identities we feel kind of positive. We can and should be able to feel positive about. And this debate really is kind of inhumane the way it's conducted. We're sort of made to feel like, we're a tragedy in a biscuit.
There's a great line in the show about parents who refuse to vaccinate for fear that it causes autism, which it doesn't. You say, quote, "I would prefer to have autism than be a sociopath like you." And that's not just hate baiting, is it, Hannah? It really makes you angry.
Yeah, it does. The selfishness of that point of view, and we're living it out as we speak, with people protesting against lockdown orders. There's a strong connection to the anti-vax movement, and it's sort of like, shut up. Your individual freedom is not as important as as the whole. Like in certain areas. Like, I think to have individual freedoms as we do in the West is an absolute privilege, and it's something you have to work at as part of a larger societal structure. You have a responsibility, and this is a moment to show that. Whilst also, you can go online and say whatever you want. You have freedom of speech. But, people's stupidity puts other people's lives in danger. And I just get so angry that they put autism as an excuse to do that. Find another excuse.
I was speaking with comedian Hannah Gadsby, whose new show is called Douglas. And Hannah said... Well, you've said previously that you snack on hate, that it's your vaccine. But I do wonder, are you prepared for the reaction from this special once it starts streaming on Netflix? Because that's a whole another level, as they say.
Well, to a certain extent I was prepared. And then, with this pandemic, I'm more than prepared with just the weapon of context. There are bigger things to worry about. So if people want to, get upset about a comedian saying something about vaccinations, then that's more of a reflection of who they are and what their priorities are. There's a lot going on in the world.
And your mum and dad are still in Tasmania. They're talking about, by the way, direct flights from New Zealand to Tasmania. That'd be cool. I haven't done that since the 90s, I don't believe. But your dad... Your dad sounds a bit like your archivist. He's doing albums of all your press clippings.
Yeah.
I suspect he might be about to get overwhelmed.
He was, in the middle of the whole Nanette thing, he said to me, he complained, he said, some of these articles, they're 2 or 3 pages long. I'm not made of toner. I got him an Officeworks voucher. He said, yeah, you are.
Do you think the pandemic will affect comedy? Will it force it to evolve, live comedy?
I hope it does. I think this is a chance where I think in all things we have to evolve, because we're learning lessons fast and furiously. And if something doesn't evolve, then, fat chance of survival.
I think it was a joke. You said that you were...
That's the story of my career.
Yeah. You talked about, you should have done a trilogy of trauma, but we have 2 shows now. So is there a third coming?
I do believe things, should be in 3s. I believe in a triptych. My other days taught me the power of 3. So yeah, they'll who knows what that'll look like, but I feel like I should name it after my other dog at the very least.
Hey, it's lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thanks for your time.
Hannah Gadsby, and her show Douglas premieres on Netflix on May 26th. It's a comedy special where purpose and punchlines come together. I've been speaking to Hannah Gadsby, who you may have seen when she was in New Zealand. Or you may have even seen her. She's done a couple of panel shows in New Zealand. She used to be regular on 7 Days and other shows. So it's been pretty amazing to see her star rise and the effect that Nanette in particular had around the world. So from tomorrow night, you'll be able to watch Douglas on Netflix. It's just about 2 o'clock. We are due to take Todd Muller's media conference at 2 p.m, in which he is expected to announce the reshuffle of the National Party Caucus. He indicated last week that some people might stay where they are and others might move around, so we'll find out if that's true shortly. We are going to chat to one of the winning designers of our T-shirt competition. Ben Hurley will talk what he's been watching on TV. And we've also got Martin Gledhill in after 2 o'clock, and he's here to answer our questions about the 5G network.
RNZ News at 2, ngā mihi o te rā. Good afternoon, I'm Paul Brennan. As unemployment numbers rise, new relief payments are being introduced for those who have lost their jobs since March due to COVID-19. The payments will cover people for up to 12 weeks while they retrain or find new work. Here's political reporter Charlie Drever.
The payments will be untaxed, with former full-time workers getting $490 a week and part-timers receiving $250. The Social Development Minister, Carmel Sepuloni, says COVID-19 has created a new cohort of job seeker who is under immense pressure to meet their living costs. She says in ordinary times these people would find work relatively quickly or manage costs without extra support. But these are extraordinary times. The payments will start on June the 8th. From Parliament, ko Charlie Drever, DNA.
Todd Muller has revealed his new caucus lineup with many of the same faces remaining on the National Party's front bench. The new leader takes the top spot, followed by his deputy Nikki Kaye, and then Amy Adams at number 3, who last year said she'd be leaving Parliament. Ms Adams has the new portfolio of COVID-19 recovery. Ms Kaye keeps education, and Judith Collins goes up against Shane Jones in regional economic development. The former leader, Simon Bridges, has not been allocated a portfolio as he's been given more time to consider his future. Former Deputy Paula Bennett drops 11 places down the rankings but remains national spokesperson for drug reform and hopefully will be crossing to Todd Muller's media conference in just a moment. There are no new cases of COVID-19 to report in New Zealand today. That means the total number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 remains at 1,154. The total number of people who have recovered from the coronavirus is 97%. And one person remains in Middlemore Hospital. Yesterday, more than 2,000 tests were completed, bringing the total number of tests completed to date to 261,000. Police in Hong Kong arrested dozens of people during protests last night as China's government vows to enforce new national security laws without delay. The ABC's Bill Birtles.
You do a bit.
Lead into the background.
Kia ora koutou. As I said at this podium 3 days ago, my absolute focus as National Party leader is New Zealand's economic recovery. New Zealand is facing perhaps the toughest time that almost anyone alive can remember. We are borrowing tens of billions of dollars to get us through the COVID-19 crisis. There is only one team that can invest those funds competently and well, and that is my National Party team. Labour has failed against every target it has set itself, from Kiwi Build to light rail. New Zealand simply can't afford for that level of failure as we all seek to recover from COVID-19. Our National Party caucus is bursting with talent. The lineup I'm announcing today includes people with the experience, management skills and proven ability to make things happen. I am flanked today by two important team members who will be central to our efforts. Our Deputy Nikki Kaye and former Minister Amy Adams. It is essential that National's COVID-19 recovery has the priority, coordination and in particular the make it happen focus required. For that reason I have asked Amy to take on the essential portfolio of COVID-19 recovery. Amy's job is to lead National's policy work on COVID-19 recovery and to coordinate the teams responsible for developing and delivering our plans. Amy is tough and tested and will play a key role in getting you, your family and your community through this. Let me be clear. Recovery isn't just about the economy that Wellington talks about. It is about our communities, it is about our social services, and it's about how Kiwis live their lives. And this will be at the heart of everything that we do. The economy that I believe in is the one that you live in. It is the economy of our community. This is the economy National MPs are grounded in and the one that matters most to New Zealand. Our team will ensure that your economy and your life are at the heart of our decisions. The lineup I'm announcing today is a mixture of experience and new talent New Zealand needs right now. National will ensure New Zealand recovers from COVID-19 with confidence. We will save jobs, get the economy growing again, and we will do so by leveraging our country's great strengths, our people, our communities, our great natural resources, our values of hard work, tenacity, innovation and aspiration. We will be a government that delivers for New Zealand, and that is why we must win the next election. Cheers. I think all of New Zealand has experienced a huge shock over the last 8 weeks going through COVID-19 and the scale of the challenge that sits in front of us as a country. And over the last few weeks I have been reflecting with Amy on the challenge that sits in front of us as a country and the opportunity to be able to serve New Zealand and in particular a government that I lead in a very critical role of COVID recovery. She is a woman of remarkable talent, and I'm sure you all in this room would agree, and I thought that it was too great a loss for this country, not just the National Party, if Amy left us, in my opinion, with unfinished business. And I think we have, with Amy, the opportunity to have a tremendous contribution at a time of high national need.
No, look at all. I announced, a year or so ago that I wanted to have a bit more time with my family and for my life, and if the world had carried on as we knew it then, that was my intention. But as Todd has said, the last 8 weeks have changed everything, and like all of you, I've been watching the most remarkable suite of challenges face this country. And if I can be any help at all in helping New Zealand think about how it works its way through those challenges, then that's something I feel duty-bound as a proud Kiwi to do. Look, absolutely. I've always been very loyal to Simon as the leader. I think Simon did a remarkable job in a tough period of time. This is genuinely about the very different world we're now living in. And, Todd and Nikki and I are good friends. We've been good friends for a long time. We've talked about these challenges as we saw them unfolding. And they expressed a view that they thought that there was a role that I could play, that I could help. And if I can help, and if I can be any part of helping New Zealand tackle these challenges, then that's something I'm prepared to defer getting my life back for a bit longer.
And how do you do it? Do you move on to the list, and what if National doesn't make it into government after September the 19th? Will you stay on in opposition?
Yes, and Amy will be on the list. As you can see from here, she's position number 3, so I have every confidence that she will be a major part of our government.
Oh, look, it's my intention to be here for as long as I'm able to add value and help on these challenges.
So the Caucus rankings are obviously out today. How much will they inform the actual list rankings that presumably come to?
Great question. This is the team that I want to have right now, and particularly the jobs that I want them to focus on, from 1 all the way through down to a number 45. And for me, it's not about the ranking. That is a separate process. That comes between now and the election. This is me looking at the remarkable team that we have in the National Party. For me, I think it is one of the core points of difference that we will see over this course of the campaign is the talent that sits in the National Party, as I've mentioned before, their lived experience out in the real community. And I have sought, as I have outlined portfolios, that my focus has been on who I think is best to do the job as opposed to where they are on the list. Yeah, well, the list ranking process sits in front of us, of course, but our team's total focus is building a recovery plan for this country that New Zealanders can see are going to impact their lives in a positive way. And we are all focused on that, and if we do that job to the best of our ability and articulate a different vision and a different plan that New Zealanders see, relate to, and can see an opportunity as to how that impacts their families and businesses positively, then that should be the focus, and that is the focus, as opposed to where you sit right now on a list with polling where it has been.
Looking at some of these names on your front bench,
yes.
Kim Goldsworth, Michael Woodhouse, Boys Upston, Todd McClay,
Yes.
Mitch was there as well. How strategic did you have to be in terms of keeping
My total focus on who is the best team to be able to develop an alternative, a model, an internal vision, and particularly a comprehensive economic plan for New Zealand. And all of those people that you outlined are tremendous contributors to the National Party, and indeed so are the whole group. And as you'll see, I have spread substantive portfolios across the whole team because we have 14 weeks to go. And our focus is being able to develop that alternative plan and to be very clear around what it means for New Zealanders in their communities. And if we all focus on the jobs that we have, I am very confident that we will get the support come September. Sorry? Well, as I said on my press statement, have very good conversations with Simon. Again, the level of professionalism through the last weekend, as we've talked about, his perspective has been extraordinary, and the credit sits with him. He has simply asked for a bit of time, which I think is perfectly understandable, to be honest, to reflect with his family as to what the future holds for him. But I want to be very clear that if Simon Bridges chooses to put his hand up again and stand as the MP for Tauranga, he will be a part of a Todd Muller-led National Government Cabinet.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't quite hear that. Could you speak up a little? You said that your return is about COVID-19 yeah.
and the world changing. So just to be clear, if Simon Bridges had won on Friday, would you have come back to stand next to him to change the world?
If he'd asked me to, and if he'd said, look, you know, we want you as part of the team and I see a role for you, of course I would have been open to that. To talk through that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So look, the way I've been talking about it with Todd and Nikki as we've worked through a fairly hectic few days, as you can imagine, is that COVID recovery, as Todd said in his remarks, it is the economy, of course, but it's actually so much more than that. And so what we want to do is ensure that every part of our team, every part of our process is grouped into the core components of what the recovery is going to involve. And every single one of those people and those teams is focused on a comprehensive, integrated plan and delivery of that plan for New Zealand. So we're going to structure our team into a range of probably 7 policy teams that are focused not around Wellington and the public service and the normal bureaucracy, but actually around the things that we're going to need to get right to get the economy and the country moving. And I'm really excited about it.
Will you take some power from the Finance Minister if you were to win? Would you be having hands in
Do you want to?
Yeah, look, no, I've pulled together a team of particularly my top 6 who will be driving the economic and social approach for the National Party as we build our campaign plan and our vision for New Zealand. If you look at the focus of particularly that top 6, the economy, and particularly the economy of New Zealand as we recover from this great crisis, will be our singular focus. As the leader, my focus is on small business. Nikki's focus is on education and the importance of giving our children in particular the skills to be successful in a very difficult and different world that it was even only a few months ago. We've got Judith Collins and her particular roles, which I think are significant in terms of the economic recovery. And of course, finance is a critical role. But I think you can see by the very nature of this press conference that my particular style is that teams of capable people will be the defining difference in terms of this election. This government has 2 or 3 people who front everything. You know my view around the lightness of the broader cabinet table. I have a view that you need to surround yourself with the best, and I have the best team and the best would-be cabinet, and I'm very proud of it. I can answer that. This is just a simple process of confirming that Amy will be standing on the list, and because she's number 3, that is a very simple process. And we will obviously formalise that when we bring out our list, as per the earlier question, in the foreseeable future.
Well, look, as I said this morning, I don't think we should get hung up on a political souvenir. We are facing the greatest economic crisis of a generation, and what we're totally focused on is the rebuild of our country. Can I just make a comment in terms of Amy, and obviously the conversations that Todd, Amy and I have had? Look, I think one of the weaknesses of this government is they haven't been able to deliver. They haven't had someone involved in the Cabinet that, in my view, has the extent of understanding of the machinery of government to provide that delivery. If you look at Amy's past background, I think she's better placed than pretty much any politician, in my view, in the building to be able to ensure that the public service delivers for people on the ground, and I think she's going to be extraordinary in that role.
Cheers. We support supporting New Zealanders at a moment of significant need, but our concern with that announcement, it's ill-defined because now and ill-directed, because now we have a scenario where if you were made unemployed in the last week of February, you get half the rate. If you're made unemployed from the 1st of March, it's 490. Our view is that what would have been better is a stronger focus on businesses to keep them in business. Now, we've signalled that we think components of that related to the cash, a GST back policy that we had, and of course the depreciation, immediate depreciation policy, and a reduction of regulations. And when we build together our economic plan, our focus will be on what do those small businesses actually need to be able to stay afloat. And I think that's where the focus should be, as opposed to what appears to us is a ill-defined and somewhat haphazard approach. Yes, and they already had a model in place, and that was working. And like I say, we're not opposed to the support generally to people who have obviously lost their jobs, but our belief is that rather than having a two-tiered system between those who had support prior to March now being quite different to those who lose their jobs after, there should be a greater focus on what those businesses need to stay afloat and keep those people in the jobs in the first place. Look, from my perspective, as I've said a number of times, right, this has a group, I had a number of political souvenirs. I'm a little bit of a political geek when it comes to that, and I had a area of my office which had everything from Iraq caps to pins from Hillary Clinton and the like. Look, from my perspective, I wasn't vesting anything more into those memorabilia than someone who had been at the campaigns in 2016 of both the Republican and the Democrat and participated on the sidelines and took up some memorabilia on the way home. My focus is not caps. My focus is not which cap had a Hillary Clinton pin on it, or does my wife like her Hillary Clinton banner that sits in our front room. My focus, along with my team, is to ensure that we have the most comprehensive economic plan for New Zealand in 10 weeks' time. From my perspective, I don't invest any perspective into the hat. It was just simply a memento that I've never worn. It just sits. It was part of a list. I've got an Iraq one. I've got pins. I've got all sorts of stuff. It's not... I accept that. Yep. Look, my focus is the caps that you'll be seeing me wear over the next 10 weeks will have a national badge on it. Richard.
Yeah, look, on the economic policy, how much is up for grabs? Do the 5 points remain? How radical are you prepared to be or not be?
Look, from our perspective, everything needs to be reassessed again post the COVID-19 experience. I mean, we have signalled that those areas are our priorities, and they will stay that way in terms of opening up our markets, ensuring that businesses get support and cash back as soon as possible, being lighter on regulation. I mean, they still sit as core principles and core priority areas, Richard, but I'm sure you would understand that our whole economic response needs to be looked at now through the lens of what New Zealand needs to recover, what those communities in New Zealand need to recover, what those small businesses, when you walk down a main street, need to recover. And I've asked Amy, and of course my wider team, to make sure that we bring the very best plan possible to New Zealand, and that's what our focus will be.
So a tax cut's going to stay on the agenda?
All of those options are on the table. I mean, this is the point of bringing Amy Adams back, is that the scale of the change required for this country is enormous. And I've turned to Amy and said, You're one of the most extraordinary people I've ever worked with. You've got a tremendous capacity to look at this through a whole of government response, and in particular how that can interface with the private sector. And that's the work that she will be doing, bringing the best out of our team of 55. And I'm very confident that when you see our plan, you'll be very impressed with it. Well, everything is on the table. Yes, yes, yes. But I don't think that that is inconsistent, right? We made it very clear around what our 5 focus areas would be, and we are now looking at our economic policy, a suite of economic policy across the whole of government through the lens of what, if anything, needs to change. Yes. No, not in my view. I think what we have signalled there is that that focus of not increasing taxes to be able to respond to the economic crisis is a very strong bedrock position. But the elements of how we frame up an economic policy and what would have our priorities and emphasis may well change, as you would expect it to, bearing in mind the scale of what sits in front of us. Yes. Yes.
Do you agree with the sentiment that people losing their jobs at the moment need more than what beneficiaries are being paid?
Well, I think what they need is to ensure that a government is focused above all else on ensuring that they stay in a job. And that has been our focus and commitment and contribution.
They've lost the job.
Yep.
They need more to survive on than a beneficiary is paid.
Look, from my perspective, we hold the view that this should be ideally the same, right? The idea that we have 2 tiers is a challenge. We don't see the coherence of that, right? If you hold the view that unemployment benefit is a certain level, but then for a period of time, just for a certain group of people, it should be a different payment, we think there's not a coherence to that. What we would prefer is a focus on protecting the jobs in the first place, and that has underpinned our approach today. Thomas. Yes. Look, I would broadly support that position. I think that it is really important that the Hong Kong community continues with the tremendous expression of its history that it has over many years, and anything that suggests that there might be attempts to constrain that needs to be assessed pretty vigorously. And the government has signalled that they have some concerns in that area, and we would largely support that. Yes. No, I've had a number of conversations with all my colleagues, and as you would expect, they should remain, as they should always remain, between myself and my colleagues. I can just reinforce to you the point that as we land here today with a list of 55 people with substantive jobs for all of them, they are very focused on the fact that we've got a single job, and that single job is to develop a plan that protects livelihoods, that ensures jobs are protected, and people can have hope and aspiration around how they can respond over the next 3, 6, 9 months.
She shoots up 31 spots.
Yes.
That's a glowing endorsement, isn't it?
Yes, she's incredibly talented. She's incredibly talented. And as you can see through this list, we have a remarkable talent in the National Party Caucus, and the idea I had is to ensure that we spread the key roles across that talent to the greatest extent possible.
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
Can I just make a comment about Nicola? She's been early learning spokesperson. I think we've seen the extraordinary talents that she has, both in terms of policy, but also the relationships that she's built. So from my perspective, she's extraordinarily talented, and I've worked very closely with her.
Well, everything, of course, post-election, if we have the opportunity to form the government, which is absolutely our intention, you will then look at who you would like ultimately in your cabinet and how you would spread the portfolios across that list of senior people. All I am signalling is that if Simon chooses to come stand again and come back into Parliament and when we are successful in September, he would be a part of my cabinet. No, we've got 14 weeks to go, and he's asked for some time, which, as I mentioned, I think is totally appropriate, and he will reflect, and if he chooses to stand, then, he, I know, will be a great supporter of the National Party effort, and then once we have won, he will have a substantive role in my cabinet. Sorry. Look, absolutely. She has. I'm delighted to have her in the front bench. I think she's a remarkable person. She's given huge contribution to this party and to this country, and I was delighted when she signalled that she was willing to continue in a senior role. That's absolutely my intention, and I am delighted with that. Look, he is 100% supportive of the National Party, and I'd have to say, he's 100% supportive of the National Party led by the two of us, and now we've got the opportunity to run on to the election. I mean, as I mentioned the last time we spoke, we had a robust debate, but when we came out of that room, we were very focused on the job that sits in front of us over the next 120 days, and he's a key part of that. Yes. Sorry? Well, he comes from a rural background. He's a farmer himself, and he's been the chair of the Primary Production Select Committee. He's been involved in the sector at many levels over many years, and I believe he will be a significant contributor to that portfolio. And it's a very important portfolio for this country, particularly at the moment. Sam. Yep. Does that sort of speak to the difficulty in maintaining friendships and politics, given you and he will count the four amigos in 2017? And we're still four amigos, and we're still part of the National Party family. And one of the challenges, of course, when you are seeking to spread portfolios across a talented team as we have, is that you will always have some that move up and some that move down. I rate Alfred highly. He is a huge contributor. He's part of the shadow cabinet, and he's a tremendous contributor to the National Party, as many people are who in that list who have significant jobs, but may be further down the list. Well, he obviously made some ruminations to that effect a number of months ago, but has made it very clear that that is no longer part of his perspective and is a very critical part of the National Party. Oh, look, you always have a few lumps and bumps, don't you, in the first couple of days? I mean, a lot of what I saw there didn't actually bear relevance to the final position, and of course we're still working through issues around who I want where in the NLO context, and of course the campaign more broadly. So I mean, I think from my perspective, the key point here is that we have a very clear lineup now, which is very much based on a talent which I do not believe the government has. And we, when you look through this, have a team that will deliver a remarkable alternative vision and plan for New Zealand. Last question. Yes, I have asked Jerry Brownlee to take the campaign chair. Paula will continue to be involved in terms of the advocacy of our campaign more broadly, and of course is a remarkable contributor in terms of the party and its members, and that interface is superb at it. So that feels to me that it's the right mix. I mean, Jerry is in the top 6. I think it's important that you've got to have a campaign chair that fits in your top team, and he brings remarkable skills and talent to the job. Claire. Look, the board has approved the campaign chair, and of course now we go through the process that if any changes are needed, Claire, then of course we will do that over the subsequent few days. Thank you very much.